Hello again. I am so excited to be back with Kelly and Abigail White. We just had a fantastic conversation in all the places that go to all the places, our Facebook group, LinkedIn page, YouTube. It's going to go on our podcast later this week. We talked about how to have more compassionate conversations. And so if you didn't get a chance to tune into that, definitely make sure that you do. And now we are back with Kelly and Abigail. By the way, I didn't mention last time that they are the mother-daughter pair behind the Mother-Daughter Journey, and they specifically work with mothers and daughters who would like to have stronger relationships and better connections, more loving relationships, more supportive, more positive, all the positive adjectives we can put onto these types of relationships.
Exactly.
Now we're talking about something that is a completely foreign concept to me as an only child, and it's the impact that a parent can have on sibling relationships. So I'm curious why this is even a conversation that y'all feel is important to have. Again, I'm an only. I have my suspicions. But like, where did this even come from as a topic to discuss?
Oh, from our own life, school of life. That's where it came from.
Well, I mean, the first phrase I kind of want to throw out is sibling rivalry, right? We've all heard that phrase, and
Sure.
At least in my experience, a lot of that rivalry stemmed from I want my parents to not necessarily love me more, but like think of me on the same level as my sibling. Right? There's a level of competition for parents' approval.
Sure, I can see that.
At least that was, and whether that's cultivated intentionally or not cultivated intentionally, I think there's just to some degree a subconscious for all children level of I want my parents to approve of me. Mm-hmm. And so when there is somebody else, right, the natural competition of humans, there's somebody else in that environment vying for the same attention, for the same approval, there's going to be some natural sibling rivalry.
Intriguing.
So I think that's where a lot of that can stem from.
Sure.
But gosh, there's so much more to it too.
Right.
Also the parental desire, right? We all have this picture in our minds. We're going to have a family and we have, 2 kids, the picket fence and the dog, and everybody's wonderful. Our kids get along and we're all well-mannered, and the older sister sticks up for the younger sister, and, they have each other through thick and thin, and that's our picture. and many times it's not reality. And by forcing that, right? We like, why can't you? This is what it's supposed to be. What kind of person doesn't get along with their sibling? What kind of person doesn't talk to their kid, their sibling at school? We hinder that relationship because now they're like, oh, one more thing that I'm not measuring up to. And if you weren't here, it wouldn't be that way.
Interesting. I can totally see that. So one of the points that I know that you wanted to make as we have this conversation is that we individually, we can only control ourselves. We can influence others, but we can only control ourselves. Ergo, we are each only responsible for our own happiness, which also means that one sibling is not responsible for the other sibling's happiness. So like, let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. I'll start. So that's okay. Yeah.
Sure.
So, first, you have to realize as the parent, which I did not, that I'm responsible for my own happiness. I was always trying to take care of everybody else's happiness, my mother's, my husband's, and then my kid, right? I want them to be happy. I want them to have every opportunity in life. I don't want them to have the same kind of problems that I do. And so because I'm always looking externally at everybody else's wants and needs instead of my own, I don't even realize that my happiness is my own responsibility. Because if I'm busy trying to make everybody else happy, why isn't everybody else trying to make me happy? So not recognizing that, you just perpetuate down to your children. And then it gets to, well, I'm supposed to make mom happy, so of course I need to make my sibling happy, and who I am doesn't. So what does that mean about me? It opens up a whole host of, not baggage, it's a word we use all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's quite the Pandora's box of relational trauma, if you will.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think especially as an older sibling, and this is just me speculating because I am the younger, but based on my observations. So Kelly, mom, whoever you are, you were mentioning, it's so weird. It's always weird to me. But you were saying, when you weren't aware that you were responsible for your own happiness and everybody else was, right? You were trying to take care of everybody, but you didn't mention your baby sister. Like you are an older sister and absolutely modeled to us and to my older sister that the big sister takes care of the little sister.
Yes.
The big sister takes the load off the little sister's shoulders.
Yes.
The little sister doesn't have to have any of the responsibility. And with in that dynamic between my sister and myself, it created resentment. My older sister, for some to some degree, when we were younger, and we've like talked about this, right? We've gone through to therapy sessions together and like talked this stuff out. But she resented me, and a lot of it was because I was the baby sister that always had to be taken care of. That always, like, it was her responsibility to make sure I was not being bullied in school, and I, like all of those kinds of things.
Yeah,
there's a responsibility that gets put on the older sibling, intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah, I mean, I think they call it parentifying or parentifying or something.
Parentifying.
Yeah.
Parentifying.
Thank you, parentifying.
Yeah. Okay. So then once we can acknowledge, and Kelly, I'm glad that you acknowledged that as the mom, you were in a place of thinking that everyone else was responsible for your happiness. Because I see a lot of families go through that. I think especially for the moms, because again, we could talk causes, nature versus nurture, but the concept of the default parent, of who's the one that has all the mental baggage or the mental load of all the things, all the way down to who gets called when the kids are sick or whatnot, right? Like the moms take on a certain role. Not to say dads don't, and not to say that that's in every family, but that's largely what we see. And I hear from a lot of moms about, like, my kids just don't appreciate me, this, that, or the other thing, which is another way of saying my happiness is based upon them.
Yes.
Or is dependent upon them. My fulfillment is dependent upon them turning around and going, Mom, you're the best one ever.
Exactly.
Right? All of that jazz. But then when you started to find your own fulfillment, your own value, your own happiness in and of yourself, great, we can do that. But then we've also got the fact that these are two other human beings and their relationship is their own.
Yes.
And the comment that you had made in preparation for our conversation was, as the parents, we don't have to be part of it.
I mean, honestly, their relationship is none of our business, right? It's like, do we think that our children should have a say in how we interact or handle, conflict with our spouses or with anybody for that matter? But as parents, we think it's our job to interact with their conflict and to tell them how to resolve it and how they should feel about each other. And the truth is, it's not our business.
Interesting perspective. Okay.
And
Abigail, your thoughts?
Something else that we say a lot is, right, every single one of us is a snowflake. And that snowflake shifts as we get older. The more experiences we pile on, the more that we learn, the more that we unlearn, those kinds of things. And as a parent, if you are going in with that picket fence, white picket fence picture of, my children are going to love each other and get along and support each other, that's part of where that need, that desire to intervene in the relationship comes in, right? Because you're trying to maintain that picture that you created.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all snowflakes, we're all individuals, and our relationships are up to us.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it. And that's difficult. I can imagine extremely difficult as a parent to just kind of, she's like, yep.
It's up here on the level of difficult.
Like to just step back and let us.
Yeah.
But that's why we talk about modeling as well, right?
Exactly.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is, like, I can see on one side the perspective of, like, look, this is your business. You need to figure it out. I can also see that if they're, I mean, Abigail, how many years are there between you and your sister?
2.5, just 2.5.
Okay. So you're 12 and 14, call it, right?
Mhm.
Both of you going through your own age appropriate, developmentally appropriate stuff, right? Again, with the not fully
Nice word
formed
for it.
frontal lobe. What's that?
I said stuff. That's a nice word for it. Yeah.
Podcast appropriate,
Exactly.
right? So you're going through your own stuff. And then certainly mom's going through her stuff at the same time. Different stuff, but stuff nonetheless. And also recognizing that, honestly, especially if this is a relationship that's just going to be challenging, period, there's definitely going to be an aspect of grief for mom, because the perception or the white picket fence picture isn't going to come to reality. At least it looks like it may never will. I mean, you never quite can tell, but
Mhm.
at the same time, it's also the adult's responsibility to model effective conflict resolution and to help,
Absolutely.
engage in that. So Kelly, would you say that there's a place for a parent to be a mediator to
Oh,
help
yeah.
with that? What does that look like? Because I don't want, I can hear people being like, okay, so what I'm hearing is you're telling me just like back out, don't get involved, period. And I don't think that's what you mean to say. So
No,
what does
it's
that
not
look
what I
like?
mean to say. So what I'm saying is don't have a personal stake in the results of how they feel about each other, right? Definitely mediate, definitely help them have compassionate, productive, like model how to regulate your emotions, teach them how to express their emotions in a a acceptable manner, a respectful manner,
A productive manner.
a productive manner, right? And that anger is okay. Like it's a normal emotion that people get angry with each other, disappointed, all of the feelings, and that we need to feel them, regulate them, and mediate the conversation. But a lot of times we're not actually mediating in the true sense of the word. We have a definite outcome we want. We want to talk this out, and at the end, what we want is for the two of you to love each other, get along, and agree.
Right.
And so that's what I say. It's none of our business. Yes, they have to act respectful in the house. Yes, let's teach you how to model, like regulate emotions and not feel bad because you have them, and how to communicate them. But at the end of the day, the answer still might be they're not each other's favorite people. And that's up to them.
Right. Right. So to that point, I know the one point that you wanted to discuss is the fact that, yeah, they're different people and they may or may not get along. And it makes me chuckle because I've seen friends, have children. My husband and I are of an age where many of our friends have teenagers and young adults. And we've known them since they were itty bitties, and we've seen them grow and change and develop. And it is just absolutely confounding how two children that come from the same DNA could be any more completely different. And it's almost like they didn't have the same DNA. And it's like we wouldn't go to two random people on the street and be like, hey, you're randomly chosen out of the random person lottery and you're going to be BFFs, because suddenly you're siblings, right? But yet we wouldn't do that to these two strangers. And yet we can have these two children, three probably even makes it a more complex dynamic. And, with the more people, personalities that we add into the situation, the more complex it can become. Yet we have this expectation. And so am I hearing that the whole like white picket fence thing is just a farce? That like, I mean, what is
No, I don't believe it's a farce, but I think that pictures and expectations, right? We're all working towards this thing that we see instead of just being real in the day to day, right? So while we're busy trying to control the situation because we have an end point that we need to get to, we potentially are causing more damage than good trying to reach our picture. Once we kind of relinquish some of that control and we realize we're not responsible for it all, and we just need to model again how to navigate the world in I'm not going to say responsible, but just a calm, somewhat manner, like recognizing that all emotions are just emotions. They just are not good, not bad. Are there different vibrations? Are some more comfortable than others? Yes.
Sure.
But we're all going to feel them throughout our life. Expect our household not to have any of that strife because we want this picture is not reality. We are going to still have to experience the ups and downs and emotions of life inside of that home with the beautiful
Right.
landscaping.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a line, just it's not a matter of the white picket fence dream being a farce, but the image that we have created of it, of perfection, right? We're like, all right, that is the, like you were saying, something to strive for. That is the goal. That is perfection. That's ultimate happiness.
Mm-hmm.
That is the farce.
Mm-hmm.
When you're living in the day to day and you're learning to speak and act with love, just in your household, right?
Mm-hmm.
That then the white picket fence does become true.
Yeah. So then let me ask you this. Kelly, both of your daughters are grown and flown at this point, right? They're not in your home full time anymore. So
Nope.
congratulations, you got them to adulthood. My understanding is that they are both pretty darn functioning members of society.
Yes, we are.
Abigail's like, I'm not sure I like that accusation, but okay, we'll go with it.
Exactly.
So what recommendation would you have specifically, Kelly, as the mom, if you find yourself in a situation where your grown kids just don't like each other, or in perhaps the extremity of this situation where they've gone non-contact with each other and you just can't understand why? Like, okay, from your perspective of like, you can't change it as the parent, you have to honor that their relationship is their relationship. But then like, how do you navigate holidays? How do you navigate like the things where like as a parent, there must still be a piece of you that wishes that your family could be together?
Yes, most definitely. And I can say that I've had many a holiday and many a time with my two kids in the same house that were just so tense it wasn't even funny, and I was trying to control every situation, right? Oh, don't upset her and don't upset her. And you just have to get to a point where each relationship is individual.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the more that I took the expectation away that they get along, the more that I took the expectation away that it was something that they should be doing for me instead of for themselves, the more they get along, the more they were able to work it out for themselves, the more they were like, oh, you know what? You are my sister and I do love you. And let's go to therapy and talk about this and try to figure it out.
Sure.
The more I started being aware of my conversational baggage and the thing, my trauma and my things that I was bringing and expecting that had nothing to do with them, the more they were able to see that I was doing that, kind of assimilate it, and then come together. And so now it's great when we're all together as a family.
And it's interesting. There's two thoughts that come up for me. Number one is that, we talk about the concept of helicopter parent, where the helicopter parent always goes in and tries to fix everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What you're describing is when you stay entangled or enmeshed in those relationships and you're trying to control them or even trying to influence them, that is an aspect of helicopter parenting, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Where and one of the things that psychologists and sociologists have established with helicopter parenting is that it's incredibly disempowering to the kids, because they don't then learn those skills when mom or dad or teacher or grandma or whoever swoops in to fix things. They're like, well, what, do you not think that I can do it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only do they not learn it, but they get this concept that, oh, mom or dad always comes in to fix things because they don't think that I can do it on my own, which, Abigail, I see you nodding your head. There's a whole lot of challenge for the kid that comes up in that environment.
Yes, it completely invalidates their capability to grow, right?
Right.
And it also, I think a piece of that is when the parent is, if it's, helicopter parent, so to speak, in the relationship. And a lot of what we heard when we were growing up was, especially like Mother's Day was a thing, right? Just get along for me. Like I just want you two to get along for me. Like, it kind of sends the message that your relationship with your sibling is only there for your parents' benefit and not there for your own. So until the helicopter, like, went away, so to speak, and she stepped back, and I was like, like she was saying, now we were able to analyze the relationship for ourselves, where it stood for us, what we wanted in the relationship with each other, and not what we felt like it had to be for our parents. And that's when we were able to really, step into it and get to know each other.
Fascinating. Awesome. The other thought that I had from what you were saying, Kelly, when you were you used the word should a couple of times. And this is something that, those of us who are in the personal development, professional development circles hear a lot. Whenever you hear the word should, that indicates an expectation, whether of self or others. I should do this, or you should do that. Like, based upon whose expectations? Like, who made that the law of the land, that I should do A, B, C, or X, Y, Z? And so I just wanted to point that out for folks listening. One of the phrases that I have always heard, not always, but that I've heard over the years, is stop shooting on yourself. And if you say it just right, it sounds like exactly what it is.
Yes.
It's like putting those expectations on is a bunch of crap.
Exactly. And honestly, the should word is one of the most difficult for me. We actively work on it. I actually propose to people a should jar. Like, people have swear jars. Like, should cost the most money, because and it's unlearning that word it's been a process for me. I still use it frequently, and in my mind almost every time I'm like, ooh, judgment. I just brought judgment to the conversation, whether it's a conversation I'm having with myself or somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because that expectation, my business coach, for example, says to me on a regular basis when I'm like, well, I should do this. She's like, according to whom?
Right.
Like, I never told you that. Like, no business guru said, like, looked directly at you and said, you should do X, Y, Z. Like, you got to do what you believe is right. So anyway, we could talk about that forever, but we're at a pretty good pausing point. We've hit all the points that the two of you indicated that you wanted to hit about the sibling relationship. We talked about where it came from, how it shows up, how parental involvement can actually do more damage than good, and some ways to navigate that. And again, we could talk forever. I adore both of you. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you
for having us.
And if anybody's listening in and this has resonated, head on over online to themotherdaughterjourney.com. That's where you can find Kelly and Abigail. I would highly recommend that if you're kind of going, I could use some help, maybe you want to talk to them. Your kid's relationship is worth, or your relationship with your kiddo, it's worth it. So thank you both.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye, everyone.